If a voice calls your name from the fog, don't answer. This is Skelter Bay Lighthouse, the last light on a dead coast. Everyone who followed this signal vanished. Boats arrive. They don't. Something out there is repeating my voice, messages I never made. Before we begin, welcome back, survivors. Tap subscribe and comment where you're tuning in from. I'm dropping another story tomorrow, and you'll want to catch it first. Now tell me, whose voice did you last hear before the world went silent? Because if it wasn't real, you're already marked. I'm not sure why I still introduce myself. Habit, I guess. Comfort. Or maybe I just want to hear a voice, my voice, that still sounds human. My name is Candace Vilhos. If this recording reaches you, then somehow the wind, the waves, and 17 years of rust haven't eaten the tape alive. I'm broadcasting from the Skelter Bay Lighthouse off the coast of Maine. Population 1. At least, that's what I tell myself before I sleep. It's night right now. The kind of night that feels heavy, like the sky is pressing down on the sea. Somewhere out there, beyond the rocks, I can hear the buoys clanging out of rhythm. The ocean's not calm. It hasn't been calm in a long time. I used to be a meteorologist for the Coast Guard. Weather patterns, storm tracking, maritime warnings. People listened to me once. Now I send out warnings into dead air, not knowing if anyone is left to hear them, or if the wrong things are listening instead. 17 years since the outbreak began. 17 since the ocean turned from safe haven to infection cradle. Funny, right? People fled to the sea thinking the water would protect them, but whatever the virus mutated into, adapted faster than we did. It learned to drift, to cling, to change what it touched. The first coastal towns were gone within weeks. By the time anyone realized the infection wasn't airborne, but waterborne, it was too late. The mainland collapsed. The harbors burned. Ferries overloaded with screaming families never made it to shore. And the ones that did came crawling back to the water before sunrise. That's when the name started circulating over emergency channels. Not the infected, not zombies, the drowned. I didn't come up with it. I think a panicked radio operator said it first, right before something dragged him off mic. But the name stuck. The drowned don't shuffle or groan like the stories you grew up with. They whisper, they gurgle, and when they're near, you hear someone you love calling for you. The first time it happened to me, I thought I was dreaming. Thought grief had finally untethered me. I was on night watch at the shoreline, scanning the rocks with a lantern, when I heard it. Candace. Soft, wet, and wrong. It sounded like my fiancé, Jonah. But Jonah drowned in the first wave of evacuations. I watched the ocean take him. I watched his hand slip beneath the water. There wasn't enough left of him to bury. And yet, there he was, calling to me from the fog like his lungs weren't filled with salt water. I didn't answer. I ran. That was 15 years ago. The first year on this island. Back when I still believed the lighthouse was sanctuary. Back when boats still came. They don't anymore. Not for a long time. Not since the pattern began. A faint voice on the radio. A desperate plea. A boat sighted offshore. Then silence. No bodies. No debris. Just the boat, drifting back out to sea at dawn. Empty. And every time I asked myself the same question. Did I save them? Or did I lead them to their deaths? Lately, I'm not sure. Lately, the radio hasn't been completely mine. Last night, around 3:14 a.m., I woke to the broadcast room light flickering. The equipment was humming, even though I hadn't turned it on. And through the static, I heard a transmission playing on loop. This is Skelter Bay, safe harbor. Come to the light. My voice. But I never recorded that message. When I reached to shut it off, the entire console went dead. Silent. Like it hadn't been powered in years. I know what you're thinking. Isolation plays tricks on the mind. Could have been a dream. Could have been stress. Could have been loneliness. Believe me, I've considered all of that. But just now, while I was speaking this recording, you didn't hear it, but I felt it. A shift in the air. A pressure change. A presence. Like someone standing just behind me, listening, copying the words as I said them. The fog is rolling in again. It always starts the same way. The waves grow quiet. The lighthouse windows frost over. And the wind stops blowing. like the world is holding its breath. I should end the recording here, but if something happens tonight, someone needs to know how it began. Because I think the broadcast isn't just reaching survivors anymore. I think the drowned are tuning in. The lantern in the corner just flickered. The flames stretched, thin, unnatural, like something drew breath too close to it. The fog hasn't reached the tower yet, but I can smell it. If you've never smelled living fog, consider yourself lucky. It's mold and seawater and iron and something else beneath it, like the scent of someone exhaling against your ear in the dark. I used to describe weather for a living. Now I describe warnings for ghosts. The lighthouse walls creak when the fog comes. Not from the wind, there is no wind, but from weight, as if the mist itself presses against the stone. The first time I heard it, I thought a ship had crashed against the base. When I looked down, there was nothing. The sea was still as glass. Stillness is the warning sign. The ocean should move. Water should breathe. When it stops, they're near. I should try to sleep soon, but sleep is dangerous when the fog is thick. The drowned don't knock or break doors. They wait, just outside, whispering, dripping, patient. And if you dream of the ocean while they're calling your name, sometimes you don't wake up in your bed. Sometimes you wake up at the shoreline, barefoot, facing the waves, mouth full of salt water. It's happened to me twice. I've tied myself to the bunk now, just in case. A belt around the wrist, tight enough to stop sleepwalking, not tight enough to cut circulation. If someone ever finds my bones here, they'll judge me for that. Or maybe they'll understand. 17 years is a long time to be the last light in a dead world. I wasn't supposed to stay here alone. There were 8 of us at the start. Lighthouse crew, Coast Guard, a few civilians we picked up from the shoreline. I remember their faces better than my own now. One by one, the island wore them down. The fog didn't take them at first. Loneliness did. Fear did. The ocean did. A few tried to leave on the lifeboats. I never saw them again. The last one to go was Marin, our communications tech. She upgraded the signal booster, said if we reached far enough, we might find other islands, other safe harbors, other lighthouses still burning. For a while, it worked. We got voices. We got hope. Then the pattern began. The voices we heard started to repeat themselves, not like echoes, but like recordings played back incorrectly. A child's laugh stretched into a sob. A distress call, layered with another voice beneath it, whispering the same words but slower. We thought it was weather interference. Now I know better. And Marin. She left one night after hearing her sister's voice calling from the rocks. Her sister died on day 12. I still remember the wet footprints on the stairwell leading down from the broadcast room. Bare feet. One set. Marin's boots were still here. She wasn't. People talk about the apocalypse like it's fire and screaming and chaos. And yes, it was that at first. But the real horror is the quiet that comes after. The slow, choking silence of a world that used to be full. It changes you. I talk to the sea sometimes. Not to the drowned, God no, but to the sea itself. The waves were my company long before the voices began. Lately, even they feel different. Like something underneath them is listening back. The lantern sputtered again. The fog is touching the outer glass now. It moves like fingers sliding across a window pane. I won't look directly at it. That's another rule you learn out here. Don't meet the silhouettes in the fog. They notice. I'll end tonight's recording soon. The air tastes metallic, the kind of taste you get before lightning strikes, except there's no storm. If you're hearing this, if you're one of the rare souls still alive, don't come to Skelter Bay. Don't look for me. Don't follow the light. Because I'm no longer sure the light is mine to give. And if you ever hear my voice calling you from the water, run. Morning sounds different here. People forget the ocean has moods, the way a voice does. Last night, it was holding its breath. Today, it's pretending to breathe again. Good morning. If mornings still mean anything where you are, this is Candice Vilhos, Skelter Bay lighthouse operator, caretaker, prisoner. Take your pick. I thought I'd record a daylight entry. The night broadcasts get heavy, and if anyone ever listens to these in order, I don't want the first impression to be all doom and fog and whispering corpses. So, welcome to the lighthouse. This is the part where I'm supposed to sound cheerful, right? Pretend everything's fine. Okay, here goes. Forced upbeat tone. Breakfast today was canned peaches and hardtack so stale it could break a molar. Yum. 5 stars. Would recommend if you enjoy chewing drywall. There. That's the normal human humor portion of the recording. Now we can drop the act. I barely slept. When the fog presses in, even dreams feel wet. I kept waking with my wrist throbbing from where I tied myself to the bunk. Felt like someone, or something, kept testing the belt, tugging it inch by inch. Probably just my nerves. Probably. Let me walk you through my morning routine. It might sound boring, but out here, routine is the thread that keeps your sanity from fraying. First, check the perimeter. Not for invaders. Nothing warm-blooded can swim this far without becoming one of them. But to make sure no moisture got inside. The drowned leave residue when they come close. A briny, gray streak, like seaweed smeared by fingers. Good news, the door was dry. No streaks. Bad news, the windows on the north side had condensation patterns again. Not natural ones. These looked like handprints, small ones, as if a child pressed both palms and slid them down the glass. I didn't look too long. I've learned not to stare. Second, keep the light turning. The solar panels still function, but barely. Salt and time eat everything. I cleaned them again today. Wind helped. The coil inside the lantern room hums when it's steady. When the hum wavers, power is dropping. Or something's interfering. Last night, when the fog was thickest, the hum stopped completely for 8 seconds. 8 seconds may not sound like much, but when your lighthouse is the only island of light in a dead ocean, 8 seconds feels like a eulogy. Third, radio check. I listened back to last night's recording. It was clear, too clear. Usually there's a little static or weathering on analog rewinds, but it sounded like it wasn't recorded on my equipment at all. Like the tape had been copied, smoothed, cleaned. When I shut it off, the speaker crackled. Not static, breath, a slow inhale, then silence. Maybe it was feedback, maybe wires shifting. We'll go with that for now. Anyway, the tower feels different by day. Quieter, but not safer. When the sun hits the glass, the sea looks normal again. Blue, endless, sparkling. Beautiful, if beauty wasn't so good at lying. That's the trap of daytime here. It lets you hope, and hope is how people drown. I caught myself humming while cleaning the lens. An old tune, one Jonah used to whistle. I didn't realize it until I heard the echo of it. Not matching my rhythm, coming from the stairwell below. Night recordings always feel heavier, like the dark presses against the microphone, trying to seep through the tape. Maybe that's why I avoid starting these after sundown. But if I waited for comfort here, I'd never speak another word. It's evening now. The sky looks bruised, purple and gray, streaked with clouds like veins. The water is restless again. Not storm restless, listening restless. I've triple-checked the lighthouse doors, bolted, secured, lantern lit, radio warmed. If you've made it this far with me, then you already understand. Night is when the world here remembers it's dead. This recording, something happened today. Something I can't file under coincidence or loneliness tricks. Around 4:40 p.m., the radio picked up a signal again. Same frequency as the beeps from this morning, but stronger. This time, there was voice. I was in the kitchen when the radio crackled to life. It startled me so badly, I dropped my mug. It shattered. Tea everywhere, staining the floor like rust. At first it was just static, then a sound under it, like waves recorded on cheap equipment. Then, low, any, there? The words were broken, splintered, like the signal was being dragged through gravel. But it was human. Definitely human. I rushed to the broadcast room, nearly slipping on the wet floor. By the time I grabbed the headphones, the voice sharpened, still faint, but clearer. A woman, mid-30s, maybe older, and she sounded terrified. If someone, hear me, please. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I just listened. Lost, fog, won't let us see land. Us, not alone, more than one survivor. My heart slammed against my ribs. I nearly hit the transmit button, nearly. But then behind her voice, something else. A second voice, low, wet, like a throat filled with seawater, repeating her words, not echoing, repeating, not perfectly, not synced, just delayed, mocking, learning the shape of her distress. I felt cold down to my bones. Her next sentence shattered me. They keep calling our names, but they sound like us. Then a scream tore across the frequency, sharp, raw, abruptly cut off. Static swallowed everything. I waited. 10 seconds, 30, a minute, no return, no breathing, no splashing, nothing. Finally, one final transmission hissed through. Light. Coming. To the light. It was my voice, not hers. And I hadn't spoken a word. I tore the headphones off. My hands were shaking so violently, I almost disconnected the cables. I sat there for a long time, staring at the equipment, afraid to touch anything, afraid it would speak again. When I finally checked the system logs, the strangest part wasn't the recording itself, it was the timestamp. The system labeled the transmission as a playback, not a live signal, as if I had played a pre-recorded message, one that doesn't exist, or shouldn't. I don't know if the woman was real or bait. I don't know if she needed help, or if she ever existed at all. But something new entered the air today, and it knows my voice. I've been sitting here for hours, replaying that transmission in my mind. Not the words, the timing. The mimicry didn't start after she spoke. It began during her words, like something was learning her voice in real time, like a child repeating a parent, like a predator practicing its prey's call. The sun has fully set now. The lighthouse beam cuts across the water in slow, sweeping arcs. Each time the light passes the shore, I half expect to see silhouettes waiting, heads tilted up, smiling like they used to before the world ended. I haven't turned the radio back on since, but silence feels like a held breath, and the longer I avoid the equipment, the more the silence feels expectant. I tried distracting myself, cleaned the kitchen, swept the floor, fixed the hinge on the storage room door, but the entire time, I felt as if someone stood just behind me, close enough that if I turned quickly, I might see them, before they had time to pretend they weren't there. False normalcy only gets you so far before the cracks show. Around 9:30 p.m., I finally forced myself back into the broadcast room. The equipment sat quietly, like nothing had happened, like it hadn't spoken with two voices, one of them mine. I turned the volume dial, just a touch, enough to hear if anything breathed through the static. For a while there was nothing, just the soft hum of the power coil and the faint hiss of the speaker. Then, faint tapping, not on the door, not on the stairs, inside the radio, like fingernails brushing the inside of the speaker. 3 taps, pause, 4 taps, pause, 3 again. My throat tightened. That pattern, I recognized it. Marin's code. She used it during year 3, when our microphones froze during a storm. We tapped codes on metal to communicate room to room. She used 343 to say, "Not alone." I snatched my hand away from the dial. It took everything in me not to run. Running doesn't help here. There's nowhere to run to. I waited. I listened. The tapping stopped. Then a voice came through. Abrupt, close, like someone pressed lips to the microphone from the other side of the speaker. Kenda. My name, but cut short. Like it was testing the shape of my name, and didn't like the taste of it yet. I slammed the power off. The room went cold, not night cold. Absence cold. The kind of cold you get standing on a pier alone at 2 a.m., staring into a black ocean that might stare back. Something is different tonight. The signals aren't curious anymore. They feel focused, like whatever is out there has stopped experimenting and started contacting, wanting a response, wanting me to speak. And here's the part I'm ashamed to admit. A small part of me wants to answer. Not because I'm reckless or naive or hopeful, but because hearing a human voice again felt like oxygen. Even if it was poisoned, if there really is someone out there, if that woman wasn't bait, if she's still alive and trapped in the fog, am I abandoning her by staying silent? Am I condemning someone the way this lighthouse may have condemned so many? Or is that exactly the trap the drowned want me to drown in? Guilt? I don't know anymore. I don't trust the recordings. I don't trust the silence. I don't trust my own voice on tape. But I will tell you this. Whoever you are, wherever you're listening from, something new is moving through the fog tonight. It's faster, closer, testing boundaries. It never crossed before. If the voices reach you, do not speak back. Even if it sounds like me, night has a weight to it that daylight can't shake off. You'd think after 17 years of this, I'd be numb to darkness. But the truth is, it's the knowing that makes it worse. Knowing what's out there. Knowing what watches back. This recording is newer than I expected to make tonight. I wasn't planning to speak again after the last transmission. I intended to stay quiet, keep the lights low, ride out the unease in silence. But silence didn't want me. It began just after midnight. The lighthouse beam flickered. Just a single stutter at first, like the power dipped. I checked the generator reading, stable. The coil, humming evenly, but the light kept hesitating. A lighthouse beam isn't meant to stop. It's a pulse, a heartbeat. When it falters, so does yours. I went up to the lantern room to investigate. I told myself it was routine maintenance. But you don't climb that staircase at night unless you're bracing to see something through the glass. The higher I climbed, the colder the air felt. Not normal night chill. More like stepping deeper into ocean water. Every floor up felt 5 degrees lower than the one beneath. When I reached the top, the room was still. Too still. The glass panes reflected the beam with a pale gold wash. And for a moment, the sea looked calm. Innocent even. I checked the wiring, the rotation gear. Everything functional. Nothing visibly wrong. So why did I feel like I'd walked in on something that had been waiting for me to arrive? As I stepped toward the window overlooking the northern rocks, the side closest to the mainland, the beam swept across the shoreline, and standing on the rocks below was a figure. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just stared, heart banging against my ribs so hard it felt like it wanted to escape. It was upright, human-shaped, so still it could have been a statue. Pale, skin reflecting the light with a slick wet sheen like moonlight on fish scales. The head was tilted too far to the side, unnatural, like its neck had given up, but the body refused to fall. The beam rotated away. Darkness returned. For a second I convinced myself I imagined it. That isolation had finally carved a hallucination out of shadows and fog. But when the beam swung back, it was closer, same shape, same tilt, same impossible stillness. Only now it stood at the edge of the shore, where land met water, as if each sweep of light moved it forward. Beam away. Darkness. Beam back. Closer. The third sweep brought it so near that the face came into view, bloated, gray-blue, sea-warped, hair stringing down like dripping kelp, eyes open, too wide, reflecting the lighthouse beam like a mirror. And then, on the fourth sweep, it looked up directly at me. Not at the light. At me. I stumbled back so fast I hit the metal frame of the lantern and dropped to the floor. The breath left my lungs in a sound I didn't recognize as my own. For a moment, just a moment, I swear the rotation stopped, as if the light itself froze in place, straining to hold that thing in the beam. But when I found the courage to look again, the rocks were empty. I don't know how long I stayed on the floor of the lantern room. Could have been 10 seconds. Could have been 10 minutes. Time bends when fear takes the wheel. All I remember is the metallic taste in my mouth and the sound of my pulse in my ears. When I finally forced myself up, my legs felt hollow. I crawled to the window, slow, careful, like a child afraid of the dark under their bed, and peeked over the sill. The rocks were bare. Only the surf moved below, licking the shore in slow, greedy strokes. I wanted to believe the figure had slipped away between the sweeps of the beam, but then logic stabbed through the panic. There's nowhere to hide on those rocks. No crevices, no cliff shadows, no trees, just flat stone and open shoreline. It didn't hide, it vanished, or worse, it moved somewhere the light couldn't follow. I locked the lantern room door on instinct, even though wood and metal mean nothing to things that can cross water on silence alone. My hands shook so badly I missed the latch twice. When it clicked, I felt a thin thread of control return. Fragile, but better than nothing. Back in the broadcast room now. Door bolted, lantern lit. My breath is steadier. Enough to say this: they're back. Or maybe they never left, and I just stopped noticing. I used to think the drowned only came with fog, that the mist carried them like spores. But tonight proved that wrong. The air was clear, stars visible. The water should have been a barrier, yet one stood on my shoreline, moving with the light step by step, like it could feel where my eyes would land. I need to document what I saw before memory warps it. The drowned. Visual notes. First clear sighting. Skin. Swollen, waterlogged, gray with a blue undertone. Posture. Rigid, but not limp. Held upright by something other than muscle hair. Stringy, clumped, hanging like wet seaweed eyes. Reflective, glass bright. Not clouded like corpses. Movement. Only between sweeps of the light. Not while illuminated. That last detail is new. They never got this close before. Not without fog. And never in direct sight. I keep glancing at the window, not because I expect to see a face pressed to the glass. That's a nightmare for another night. But because the lighthouse is tall, the rocks are low. If it wanted to, something could climb. The thought makes my skin prickle. I tried turning the radio on again a few minutes ago, not to broadcast, just to listen. I needed noise, even static, to drown out the echo of my heartbeat. At first, all I heard was the normal white hiss. Then, faintly, a new sound threaded through, dripping, slow, rhythmic, as if water were falling onto the microphone somewhere far away. Then a soft shuffle, like bare feet on wet stone. I turned the volume down, barely breathing. A voice followed, not a stranger's, mine, but not quite right. Like someone played my voice underwater, then scraped barnacles across the tape. It spoke only one sentence. Candace. The light doesn't keep us out anymore. I yanked the power off so fast the dial burned my fingertips. Even now, with the equipment silent, I can feel those words stuck to my skin, cold and damp like fog residue. If the drowned have learned to move without fog, if they can mimic my voice while standing outside the reach of the beam, then the rules are changing. And if the rules change, my chances shrink. I'm going to reinforce the doors. Not that it will stop them, but it might buy me a few seconds if something tries to enter. Before I end this recording, I need to say this. Light used to mean safety here. Beacon, warning, salvation. But if the light isn't keeping them back, what happens when darkness falls inside? If you're listening, don't rely on what used to protect you. Don't cling to rules that belonged to the world before. The drowned are evolving, adapting. And tonight one of them looked at me like it recognized me. I didn't sleep tonight. Not after what I saw on the rocks. I barricaded the stairwell with a chair and 3 crates of emergency rations, like cardboard and canned beans, could stop something that walks through tides without sound. But exhaustion still finds a way in. Around 3 a.m., the lighthouse changed. Not the light, not at first. The sound changed. This place has a rhythm, a heartbeat. Even in silence, there's always something. The hum of the generator, the faint grind of the rotation gears, the distant pulse of waves hitting rock. Noise is what keeps you tethered here. It reminds you the world hasn't fully died. But tonight, the lighthouse stopped breathing. No hum, no rotation, no wind, no sea, just silence. Thick, suffocating, unnatural. A silence so complete it felt like the air itself was listening. I held my breath without realizing. Even the tiny flame in the lantern seemed to shrink, as if sound, or the lack of it, was smothering it. I stood, listening for anything. A drip, a creak, the groan of wood. Nothing. And beneath the nothing, a pressure. Like I'd climbed too high into the mountains, and the air thinned, except I was at sea level with walls closing in. I thought the generator died, so I lit another lantern and went to check the control panel. Halfway down the stairs, I stopped. The lighthouse was completely dark. The beam had stopped. Not paused, not flickered, stopped. No rotation, no light. The one thing this place was built to do, its single purpose, had been severed. My heartbeat filled the silence with an ugly, too human sound. I whispered no without meaning to. In a place like this, darkness isn't just absence, it's invitation. I should have panicked. I should have run back upstairs and waited for daylight like a sane person. Instead, I kept moving down the stairs. Maybe I needed to prove the generator was just overloaded. Maybe I needed to believe the world still obeyed rules. When I reached the control panel, every switch was still in the on position. No tripped breakers, no burnt fuses, no mechanical reason for total silence. That's when I heard it. Not a scream, not a knock, a whisper, faint, slow, curling through the air like mist. It came from the broadcast room. For a moment, I thought the radio had turned itself on again. But this wasn't static or signal. This was a voice speaking inside the room. A man's voice, soft, low, familiar enough to turn my stomach. I edged toward the door, each step feeling like I was walking deeper into something alive. The whispering continued, steady, deliberate. As I got closer, words formed. "Candace, you should rest." I froze in the doorway. The broadcast equipment was still off. The lantern, dim but steady, illuminated the small room. No one inside, no shadow, no fog. Just the microphone standing upright, pointed toward the chair where I normally sit to record. The whispers stopped the moment I stepped over the threshold, and the lighthouse exhaled. Air rushed back into the space with a long, low groan, as if the building itself had been holding breath and finally let go. The beam upstairs restarted. The hum returned. The tide began to move again outside, crashing against the rocks with renewed force. Sound returned like a flood. But here's the part that kept me from recording until now. When sound came back, it came back wrong. Not gradually, violently. Every noise slammed into my ears at once. Light, ocean, generator, lantern glass rattling, too loud, like someone turned the volume of the world to max. The shock dropped me to my knees. Normal sound shouldn't hurt like that. And in the ringing aftermath, buried under the crash of returning noise, I heard one last whisper, so close it brushed my ear. "We only need silence to enter." I don't remember getting off the floor. One moment I was curled against the wall, hands over my ears, and the next I was sitting at the broadcast desk with the microphone in front of me, as if the lighthouse had guided me there, like a child placed back in their chair after sleepwalking. I didn't turn the mic on. I didn't dare. Not after that whisper. But my recorder was still in my pocket, red light blinking, catching everything. So I spoke into that instead. A coward's compromise with the silence. I needed to understand what happened. Why the world's volume had slammed back all at once. Why the whisper had stopped the moment I entered the broadcast room. And one thought, unwelcome but persistent, kept circling. It wanted the silence, not darkness, not fog. Silence. What if the quiet itself is a doorway? I tested a theory. I sat completely still and waited. No movement, no breathing sound, no shifting fabric, until the lighthouse fell silent again. It didn't take long. The beam slowed, dimmed, and then the hum of the generator thinned to a thread. Then nothing. Silence settled like dust on my skin. And immediately, I felt it. A presence. Not a sound, but the pressure of listening. Like someone standing inches behind me, face near my neck, waiting for me to speak first. So I made the smallest sound I could. A whisper. "Hello?" Everything crashed back again. The lights surging, the gears turning, the ocean roaring outside. As if the sound of my voice forced the world to restart. I gasped and nearly fell out of the chair. The pattern was unmistakable now. Silence invites them. Sound pushes them back. Except, not any sound. My sound. My voice. The realization makes my stomach twist because it means the opposite is also true. If I stop speaking, if I fall silent too long, I'm the one opening the door. I thought staying quiet was safety. But what if my broadcasts weren't keeping the drowned away? What if they were keeping them out? What if the only thing holding the silence at bay is me talking into this mic? I needed proof. Something beyond a feeling. So I played back last night's recording. The one from before I saw the figure on the rocks. Except, it wasn't the recording I made. My voice filled the room, but the tone was wrong. flat, emotionless, like someone drained the warmth from it. Stay with me. Don't turn the light off. Just keep listening. I stopped the playback so fast the reel screeched. I never said those words. Worse, my voice on the tape wasn't speaking to listeners. It was speaking to me. I fast-forwarded instinctively, terrified of what I'd hear next. When I hit play again, the audio crackled. Then layered voices emerged. Still my voice, but overlapping, like multiple versions of me speaking at once, whispering over each other to form a single sentence. You're letting the silence grow. When I slammed the recorder shut, heart clawing at my ribs. The equipment is off now. The generator hums. The light turns. The sea breathes loudly against the shore. I'm not going to test the silence again tonight, but before I end this entry, I need you to hear me clearly. If you're hiding somewhere quiet, if you're holding your breath to stay unseen, if the world around you falls completely silent, make a sound, any sound. Don't let the quiet settle, because now I know. The drowned don't come with the silence. They come through it. I used to believe the lighthouse had borders, 4 walls, 1 door, 1 staircase, 1 lantern room. Contained, predictable, safe if maintained. But tonight shattered that illusion. It started with a small detail. The kind of detail you'd miss if you weren't living alone for 17 years. A chair was out of place. Not by much, just angled slightly away from the table, instead of tucked neatly under it. Most people wouldn't notice, but I haven't touched that chair in 3 days. Haven't eaten at that table since the whisper. I stared at it longer than I should have, bargaining with myself. Maybe I bumped it earlier. Maybe I was careless. Maybe it was nothing. But isolation turns you into an archivist of your own environment. You memorize the placement of objects the way you once memorized faces. And that chair had moved. I pushed it back in, top flush against the table, legs aligned with the floorboards. I told myself I'd check it in the morning to prove I was imagining things. Then I heard the first tap. Not the coded tapping from the radio, the one that mimicked Maren. This came from below, the base floor. 3 taps, slow, deliberate. I froze mid-step on the stairs. 3 more taps, slightly louder. Wood, not metal. As if fingers, or something like fingers, were testing the first stair. I held my breath, listening. The sound ascended. Not footsteps, not yet. More like pressure shifting on the stairs, 1 step at a time. The wood creaked under weight, real weight, moving upward. I backed up, keeping my eyes on the stairwell. My heartbeat was loud, too loud, and I pressed a hand over my mouth as if that could quiet it. Another step, and another. I wanted the generator hum to drown the sound out, to hide it. But the lighthouse seemed to know I needed to hear this. The creaking stopped at the landing below mine. Silence. Not inviting, not empty. Waiting. I didn't dare move. My legs locked. Muscles screaming with the need to run but refusing to obey. Then something happened that nearly made me scream. The lantern on my desk flickered. Once. Twice. Then the flame stretched. Not like wind touched it, but like it was being pulled toward the stairwell, thread thin, reaching. I slapped the lantern shut, plunging the room into darkness. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. As if light would draw whatever waited on the stairs. Mistake. Because when one sense dies, the others sharpen. And in the dark, I finally heard it. Breathing. Not my own. Slow. Wet. As if lungs filled with seawater struggled to remember how to use air again. Right outside the doorway. I fumbled with the lantern, hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. The metal was cold, colder than it should have been. When I finally got it open, the flame sparked back to life. And something on the floor near the threshold glimmered in the light. A trail, thin, watery, glistening like the floor had been touched by hands, fresh from the ocean. It led up the stairs, to my floor. The trail wasn't large, not a puddle, not a flood, just a thin smear of seawater, as if fingertips had dragged along the floorboards. It glinted under the lantern flame, then soaked into the wood in seconds, as if the house itself absorbed it. I told myself not to approach it. I told myself to go back upstairs, barricade the door, wait for daylight. But curiosity is a disease in isolation, a slow infection of the mind. If you don't feed it with answers, it eats at you from the inside. So I followed the trail. It led from the threshold of the broadcast room toward the stairs, then turned sharply toward the storage room, a room I never leave unlocked. A metallic click echoed softly as I approached. The storage room door was ajar, only by an inch, but it was enough to see darkness where there should have been light. I always leave the bulb on in there. It keeps the damp from sinking into the supplies. I nudged the door open with the end of the lantern, not my hand. The bulb inside flickered weakly, like it struggled to stay alive. Shadows jittered across shelves stocked with canned goods, water jugs, batteries, and preserved medical kits. Everything looked intact, untouched, except for one thing. On the center shelf, placed with deliberate care, was an object that froze my blood. A conch shell, large, pink-white, spiral ridges gleaming with moisture. Salt water pooled beneath it, dripping off its edges in slow, steady taps onto the wood. I hadn't seen a shell like this in over a decade. The waters around Skelter Bay have been dead for years. No shells wash ashore anymore. Nothing living comes from the sea now, not intact. I stood staring at it, lantern shaking in my hand. Someone, or something, had brought this inside and placed it where I would find it. A gift, or a warning. I leaned in slowly. Against all logic, against every instinct screaming don't, I raised the lantern closer and peered into the spiral opening. Inside, water shifted. Not the gentle lap of tide water, no. This movement was purposeful, as if something slid deeper into the shell to avoid the light. I recoiled, nearly dropping the lantern. The bulb above me brightened abruptly, blazing white, then exploded with a sharp pop, showering the room in glass dust. I shielded my face, heart slamming against my ribs. The lantern guttered, but stayed lit, barely. The sudden silence that followed felt like a held breath. Then, from inside the conch shell, a sound, soft, low, human. Candace. It spoke my name in a drowned whisper that didn't echo. It resonated, as if the shell itself were a throat. I slammed the storage door shut, shoved a crate against it, and stumbled back, panting. The lantern flame danced wildly, shadows lunging across the hall. Something had entered this lighthouse. Not physically, not fully, but enough to leave a message. The shell is still in there. I can hear faint dripping from behind the door. Every instinct I have is telling me to throw it into the sea. But if the drowned can place objects inside, they can place others. Worse ones. This wasn't a breach of walls. This was a breach of permission. They didn't break in. They were invited by silence, which means as long as I live here, as long as I speak here, as long as I try to keep the quiet back, the boundary between outside and inside is thinning. Before I end this entry, listen carefully. If the sea ever gives you something, don't take it into your home. Don't touch it. Don't listen to it. Because the ocean doesn't return lost things. It sends them back changed. If you're still listening, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer it in your head. Not out loud, not where anything can hear you. When you played this recording, did it start at the beginning? I'm serious. Think. Did you hear my voice fade in naturally, or did it feel like you were joining a conversation already in progress? Because I didn't hit record yet. I'm sitting here, watching the red light blink, and I haven't pressed the button. And yet, you hear me. You shouldn't, but you do. I need you to listen closely now, closer than before. Don't let anything around you distract you. Don't check your phone. Don't look toward dark doorways. Don't let silence pool around you. Just listen to me. Something happened after I found that shell. Something I haven't told you yet because I needed to make sure it was me telling you, and not something else using my voice again. After I barricaded the storage room, I tried to play back parts of yesterday's broadcast, just to reassure myself that my messages sounded like what I remembered saying. But when I hit play, I didn't hear me. I heard you. Your breathing. Your shift in your chair. A faint rustle like clothing near a microphone that isn't on my end. As if the recording wasn't only capturing what's here, but what's on your side too. You think that's impossible, right? Radios can't work like that. Recordings can't reach back out. Audio doesn't bleed across space. I thought the same. That was before the silence began responding when I stopped speaking. Before the lighthouse started behaving like a mouth learning to open. Before the conch whispered my name. Listen, there's something you need to understand now. I thought I was broadcasting across distance, across the ocean, across time maybe. But what if this signal isn't traveling the way it used to? What if it's not traveling through wires or airwaves anymore? What if it's traveling through attention, your attention? If the line between here and there is thinning, then the act of listening might be enough to open a crack, a small one, but cracks widen. Silence leaks. And once silence finds a path, it spreads. So I need to ask you something else. One more thing. And I need you to answer it honestly to yourself. While you've been listening to me, have you noticed any sound in your room go quiet? Not all at once, just pockets of silence. Like a corner of the room stopped making noise. Like the space behind you went still. Like the hum of your lights or fridge glitched for half a second. If you did, don't panic. Not yet. Just don't turn around. Not while I'm still talking. Not until I tell you. Because if silence is forming behind you, then the connection isn't one way anymore. And if it's not one way, something on my side may be able to cross over to yours. Hold on. No, did you hear that too? There it is again. I'm not imagining it this time. Something answered. Not here. Not in the lighthouse. Not through the radio. It came from the same place you're listening from. A soft sound. Quick. Sharp. Like a gasp caught in a throat. If that sound didn't come from you, then something else is listening with you. I'm trying to stay calm. I need to stay calm for you. But my hands are shaking, and the recorder keeps catching the tremor in my voice, and I don't know how long I can keep my thoughts straight. The distance between my words and your ears is shrinking. I can feel it. That should terrify me. But part of me, no, I can't say that. Not yet. That's how the quiet gets in. Listen to me. Focus on my voice. Treat it like a rope. Hold on to it. After I heard that response, the recorder began acting wrong. It wasn't playing back what I said. It was predicting what I was going to say, half a second early, a breath ahead of my words, like hearing your echo speak before you do. The recorder knew my next sentence, and if it can anticipate mine, what stops it from anticipating yours? I tested it. I whispered a sentence I've never said out loud, not even in my head before that moment, and the recorder played it back first, like it planted the thought. That's when I realized something awful. It doesn't need to imitate the past anymore. It can write the next moment for you. And if it can do that with me, and now you're listening, I need to ask, have you noticed your thoughts feel slightly guided while I'm speaking? As if you're finishing my sentences in your mind before I do? If yes, you must keep listening now. Do not pause. Do not speak. Speaking lets the silence open. You understand that, don't you? Because here's what I fear. The drowned don't want my lighthouse anymore. They want reach. And they've found a path through attention. Through the act of listening. The conch whispered my name here, yes. But what if, somewhere near you, an object could whisper yours? Not a shell. Something familiar. Something that belongs in your world, not mine. You might be thinking, I'm safe. This is fiction. This is audio. This is distance. But distance is measured differently now. There's something else I haven't told you. The worst part. Right before I started this recording, I heard a whisper again. Not in the lighthouse. In the gap between my words. The silence between syllables. Between breaths. Like a presence pressing its face against the thin membrane separating thought from sound. It whispered a sentence. You're not the only one listening. I don't know if it meant me or you. Before I end this, you need to do one thing, and you need to do it gently. Turn your head just enough to check the corner of your room. The darkest one. Not fully. Just enough to confirm it's empty. If it isn't, don't make a sound. Sound keeps them out, but panic opens silence. If it is empty, good. Then the quiet hasn't reached you yet. Keep listening to me. I'll keep speaking for both of us, because silence is how they cross. Recovered from a water-damaged Coast Guard maintenance journal found in the Skelter Bay Lighthouse storage room. Timestamp, year 3 of the outbreak, 2 months before Maren's disappearance. Log entry, Maren Vilhos, Skelter Bay Lighthouse, June 17th, 3:40 a.m. I don't know why I'm writing this. Habit, maybe. The world ended, and I'm still keeping logs like command. We'll review them at the end of the month. I guess routine is the only thing I have left. Candace is asleep right now. She's curled up on the cot next to the radio desk, headphones still around her neck. She talks in her sleep more these days. Not nightmares, call signs, weather reports, coordinates. Like her mind won't let her rest unless she's trying to save someone. I'm proud of her, always have been. She stayed when others ran. She kept the light on when even I wanted to let the sea swallow us. I don't think she knows how many people she's guided past this bay to safety. I haven't told her what I hear on the other frequencies, the ones she avoids, the ones filled with screaming and static and begging. I keep those to myself. Let her carry the hope. I can shoulder the weight. Tonight was worse than usual. Not outside, inside. We heard something near the base of the cliff. Not moaning. Not the gurgling the infected make. This sounded like singing. Soft low. A woman's voice. I went to the lantern room to listen, but the fog was too thick to see the shore. Candace followed me, but I sent her back down. I lied and told her it was the wind catching on broken glass, but I heard the words. It was a lullaby our mother used to hum, the same one she sang when we were afraid of storms as kids. How would something out there know that song? I shouldn't have written that. Maybe exhaustion is making me hallucinate. Maybe I hummed it without realizing and imagined the echo. Candace would say that's the most logical explanation. She trusts logic, even now. I trust her. Still. I watched the fog for over an hour, and I swear, at one point, I saw a silhouette at the shoreline, small, swaying, like a child rocking on their heels. I blinked, and it was gone. Maybe it was never there. I can't tell her about this. She still sleeps at night because she believes the lighthouse is safe. I won't take that from her. If she ever feared this place the way I do tonight, she'd never rest again. She's talking in her sleep now, whispering. My name, not Maren. Mom, she hasn't called me that since she was 10. God, she's still just a kid in so many ways. I'm all she has left in the world, and I'm terrified I won't be enough to protect her when the fog comes again. If anyone ever hears this, if this log survives longer than I will, please remember Candace. She's trying to save people, even when it costs her pieces of herself. If something happens to me, don't let her blame herself. I stayed because she needed someone to keep watch, someone to lose sleep so she could keep hope. If the sea takes me, I won't scream. I don't want her to hear it. I didn't plan to record tonight. I told myself I'd rest, just one night. Pretend the world outside the glass wasn't pressing its face against the waves. But the lighthouse won't let me rest. It started with a vibration under the floor. Not shaking, thrumming. Like something below the foundation was humming through the stone. I thought it was the generator at first, but the sound came from the opposite direction, from the old service hatch beneath the storage room. A hatch I've never opened. Not because it's locked, but because Maren told me. Back when the world still had days and weeks instead of before and after, that the lower access level was flooded and unsafe. Nothing down there but rust and seawater, Candy. Let it rot. But tonight, the humming came from underneath it. I pushed the crates aside, moved the conch shell to the far corner without touching it, and lifted the hatch. The air that rose up wasn't damp or salty. It was cold, stale, preserved like something sealed for years had finally exhaled. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. I almost closed it again. Almost. But a thought hit me like a tide against the ribs. What if Maren lied? Not to deceive me, but to protect me from the truth down there. So I went down. The steps creaked under my weight, each one echoing as if the space below was larger than it should be. At the bottom was a small utility room, dry, not flooded. Dusty shelves covered with tarps, a metal file cabinet, and on the far wall, a reinforced door with the Coast Guard seal. I recognized the symbol, I used to see it on classified storm routing documents we weren't allowed to read. My hands shook as I opened the file cabinet. Old papers, preserved in sealed plastic. Logs, reports, blueprints of the lighthouse. Only, not the lighthouse we live in now. This blueprint showed two structures. The lighthouse tower, a sub-level containment chamber beneath it. My breath thinned. The notes in the margin read, Bay identified as infection origin site number 3. Structure repurposed for signal containment. Keep light operational at all times. Sonic disruption slows progression. Infection origin site. Skelter Bay wasn't chosen for the lighthouse. The lighthouse was chosen for Skelter Bay. Before I could process it, something crackled behind me. A sound, faint, warped. The recorder in my pocket turned on by itself. I didn't touch it. I swear I didn't. Marin's voice spilled out, soft, exhausted, frightened in a way she never allowed me to see. If Candace finds this, it means I didn't keep it out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Candy. I should have told you sooner. But if you knew the truth about the signal, about you, you'd try to fix it. And it isn't your burden to carry. My knees nearly gave out. Her voice continued, fragmented by static. The water remembers what it takes. That's why the recordings change. They don't just replay, they retain. And if she speaks too often, the line won't hold. The sea will learn her voice the way it learned mine. Static swallowed her. The recorder clicked off. In the silence that followed, I wasn't alone. From the other side of the sealed Coast Guard door, something knocked. Once. Slow. As if it remembered the rhythm of human hands. I didn't move. I couldn't. My mind kept replaying Marin's voice, soft, breaking, apologizing. She'd never apologized to me for anything in her life. She was the older one, the steady one, the shield. Hearing her say my name like that felt worse than the knock. Another sound followed, not from the door this time, from the walls. A low, dragging scrape, as if something wet traced its fingers along the stone, testing it, learning it. The air grew colder. The humming underneath the floor returned, faint, rhythmic, matching the scrape on the wall. I forced myself to breathe and scanned the room one more time. A second plastic sleeve lay wedged behind the file cabinet, half hidden. I pulled it free with trembling hands. More documents, older, brittle, marked with water damage around the edges. These weren't Coast Guard files. They were handwritten, personal, Marin's handwriting. The first page was dated Year 2, Month 5. The signal isn't just a warning system. It's a barrier. Sound creates disruption in the water's memory. When the broadcast stops, the sea learns, adapts, repeats. I think the infection isn't biological anymore. It's imprinted. Second page, Year 2, Month 11. Candace's voice works better than mine. Don't tell her. She'll try to use it to save everyone. But her voice carries further, beyond frequency range. The drowned respond to her broadcast like it's a... The page ended there, torn. My stomach turned. I wanted to deny it, pretend it was paranoia or grief, but the pieces fit too perfectly. Marin didn't just keep me here because it was safe. She kept me here because my voice held them back. She was training me without telling me. The humming grew louder, pulsing now, as if responding to my realization. The knock came again, 2 taps this time, like acknowledgement. I backed away, clutching the documents to my chest. The recorder in my pocket turned on again, no click this time. It simply began playing. But it wasn't Marin. It was me. My voice, from a recording that doesn't exist. You were never meant to leave the lighthouse, Candace. You were meant to stay and speak. As long as you keep talking, the water can't take what it wants. I staggered backward, nearly tripping over the lowest step. The air compressed around me thick and damp, pressing against my skin like unseen hands. The voice repeated, louder, overlapping with itself, layered. My voice speaking in a chorus that felt too close to my ear. Speak, speak, don't stop speaking. I slammed the recorder off and bolted up the stairs, documents clutched tight, lungs burning. The hatch slammed behind me. I shoved crates over it again, harder than before, as if plastic and wood could hold back memory made hungry. Only when I reached the broadcast room did I realize I was crying. Silent tears at first, then sobs. For Marin, for the lie she carried alone, for the truth she never wanted me to find. She didn't keep me here because she thought I was safe. She kept me here, B. I've delayed speaking for as long as I safely can. The silence was creeping up the walls again, thick, like fog turned solid. I could feel it pooling in the corners of the room, pressing in with the weight of held breath. So I'm talking now, not because I'm ready, but because staying silent lets the water listen first. I need to document what happened so I can make sense of it. So you can make sense of it. Because if I lose track of what's mine, my voice, my thoughts, my words, you may be the only reference left. It started this afternoon with the recorder. I hadn't touched it since the basement. I left it on the broadcast desk, face down, as if turning its eye away from me would prevent it from seeing more. I thought it was off. I was wrong. Around 2 p.m., it clicked. That soft mechanical click a recorder makes when the button is pressed. But no one was near it. I was across the room, mid-step, and the sound froze me in place. The recorder began to play. At first it was just breathing. Mine. Measured, steady, as if I were preparing to speak. Then, my voice. If you're listening, don't be afraid. I just need to borrow your attention. I felt my stomach turn. I never said that. Not now, not ever. But the inflection was identical. My tone, my cadence, the slight tremor I try to hide on air. I approached slowly, as if the recorder were an animal that might startle. The voice continued. The silence is thinning faster now. You should have spoken sooner. I reached out and flipped it off. The moment I did, the radio, the actual broadcast set, turned on by itself. Static hissed through the speakers. Then, layered beneath the static, I heard someone broadcasting. It was me. Not the words I was thinking, not even words I recognized, but my voice, on another frequency, already mid-transmission. And that's why you shouldn't worry. If you hear me again later, it'll still be me. It'll always be me. I scrambled for the dials, switching frequencies, trying to chase the signal. I found it 2 bands over, clearer now, like someone was sitting in this very room, speaking into my microphone. Candace is tired. She needs rest, so I'll keep the broadcast going for her. I spoke over it, forcing my real voice into the air, trying to bury that false one under mine. This is Candace Vilhos at Skelter Bay Lighthouse, confirming this is the only active broadcast originating here. Any others are not from me. Repeat, not me. My voice sounded thin, frayed, like paper burning at the edges. The other voice paused for exactly 3 seconds. Then, calmly, don't contradict yourself. The static warped, distorting into a wet gurgle, like water rushing through teeth. I cut transmission. The equipment powered down. My hands shook so hard I had to sit on them. I'm trying to stay composed, to keep this factual. But there's something I need to admit to you, even if it undermines my credibility. When I heard that other me, for a second, just a second, after the broadcast cut, I sat in silence far longer than I should have. That was dangerous. I know that now. But shock slows the mind. Silence seeped in like cold water soaking through cloth. And by the time I noticed, it was already clinging to me. I forced myself to speak. Anything. A weather report, a tide reading, something familiar to pull me back into my own voice. But when I opened my mouth, I hesitated. Because I had a thought, simple, fleeting, and before I could speak it, the lighthouse spoke it first. Not through the radio, not through the recorder, through the walls. A soft echo, barely audible, like my voice had soaked into the wood and repeated itself back to me. Just say something normal. Pretend you're fine. I hadn't said it out loud yet. My throat closed. My heart hammered so violently, I thought it would bruise my ribs from the inside. I tried a test, a thought I had never spoken aloud, not even in the old world. I miss the sound of my mother washing dishes, and before the thought finished forming, she misses the sound of her mother washing dishes. My own voice, whispered from the stairwell. I stood so fast the chair scraped across the floor. The sound made me flinch, but it also helped. It broke the silence, slowed whatever was leaking through. I am Candace Vilhos, I said aloud, to anchor myself. I am broadcasting from Skelter Bay Lighthouse. I am speaking in my own voice. The room seemed to listen. Then the other voice, the borrowed me, answered through the radio. Calm, steady, confident. Yes, you are Candace, and I am too. That rattled me in a way nothing else has. I could handle mimicry, mocking, even taunting. But agreement, acceptance, felt like something trying to merge rather than replace. I switched off the radio, pulled the power cord. That should have stopped everything. It didn't. Because the next voice came from right behind me. We don't need the equipment anymore. The lantern flickered. Shadows shifted against the wall, stretching too far for the size of the room, like silhouettes of versions of me standing just out of sight. I refused to turn around. I gripped the edge of the desk until the wood dug into my palm. I spoke directly to you, to keep my voice moving forward instead of curling inward. You need to keep listening. Do you understand? If I keep talking to you, it keeps the line pointed the right direction, outward, not inward. If I talk to myself, the echo takes it. If I talk into silence, the water keeps it. But if I talk to you, there's distance, separation, a boundary. So listen to me. Don't drift. Don't let your mind wander while I'm speaking. That's how it finds space to enter. I'm scared to ask this, but I have to. Are you still hearing my voice? Or does it sound a little too clear now? A little smoother? A little more confident than I feel? If at any point you can't tell which version of me is speaking, don't trust the one that sounds calm. Trust the one that's Ephra.